Welcome to part 2 of exception handling in Java. In our previous session, we have already seen how to handle an exception using try-catch block. Now let's reuse the same example and try to handle the exception using finally block as well. Now let's reuse the same example that we have taken in our previous video. So here I'm accepting a couple of numbers and then dividing them and returning the result. So now, what is a finally block? How we can use it for exception handling? So finally is a block which will come in combination with the try block, and it can come with the combination of try catch as well. But that is not mandatory. Try is the block which is mandatory for adding a finally block, and this block will always be executed. So unlike the catch block or any other statement inside the try block, even if any exception occurs or not, the finally block will always be executed. So how we have to write it? This is how we have to write finally with the finally keyword and then parenthesis. And now whatever we write inside the finally block, that will always be executed irrespective of occurrence of any exception. Finally block can be used to close the resources that we are using. So in our case, we can see there is one resource which we are using, which is scanner. And also you can see already IDE is giving me a warning that this resource, there is a resource leak for SE as it was never closed. So in Java, whatever resources we are opening, we have to close them as well so that there is no resource leak. Resource leak, as the name suggests, it's not a kind of leak, but it's like an object which will be residing in the memory, and garbage collector will not be able to clear them from the memory. So if we define the closure of resources inside try block, then there are chances that that closing statement will not be executed in case any exception occurs. And if we define the closure of this resource inside any catch block, then there is also a high possibility that that block itself is not getting executed. So on the safer side, the finally block can be used to close such kind of resources. So let me just close this scanner, and you can see the warning is also gone now. Now let's run the program first without any exception and second time with an exception. Let me comment out this line because this will result into an exception. Now I'm running this as a Java application, entering two numbers, and you can see division result is also shown, and here finally is also called. So finally, which I printed in finally, that got also called. Now let's try to run it with an exception also. So I'm entering divisible by 0, and here you can see exception was also called, and this statement got printed, and in the end you can see the finally was also called. Next is try with resources. So this specific option actually comes with Java 1.7. Before that, this option was not available. So here you can see I'm closing the resources explicitly, but using try with resources, I can take help from JVM itself, so that while defining my try block, I will declare my resources there itself, so that JVM will take care of closure of all those resources. So I don't will developer will not have extra burden of remembering and closing the resources. I need to add another try block on top of this. So how it will be the try with resources. So in these round brackets itself, I need to define the resource. But before that, let me just write a standard try catch block. I have added the whole code till this point into another outer try block. Now how I will declare my resource here using this, I just need to copy this same line as it is, and copy and paste, and from here I can remove this line. So now this resource is available to me inside this try block, but I don't need to worry about closing this resource itself because JVM will take care of closing the resources automatically. So if we run the program, we will have the same output. So here you can see one exception also got occurred because we have uncommented this line, and the program execution went smooth. Next is user defined exceptions. So just like we have exception, arithmetic exception, or other exceptions as well, we can define our own user defined exceptions as well. So let's take an example. So here I have created this exception, which is insufficient balance exception. So suppose it is a banking application, and for to do some transaction, it is calling a method to verify the available balance, and if it is below some specific value or the required value, then it should throw this exception, insufficient balance exception. So as you can see, these are business logic related exceptions, not some technical exceptions like we have arithmetic exception or null pointer exception. So due to its nature, these are known as business or user defined exceptions. So here I have just created one constant file where I have defined this insufficient balance constant, which will pointing to the value of insufficient balance in your account. So it will extend the main exception class, and in its constructor method we can write the logic that we want. So here I will only be printing that there is insufficient balance in your account. Now coming back to our main class, user defined exception. So I have a variable balance here, and to set its value there is a setter method set balance, which is accepting one parameter integer and setting that value to balance. Now this is the main method from where execution will start, and here I am creating one object and setting the balance to 1000. Now we need to create one more method which is to verify the balance, and based on some limit we will try to throw the insufficient balance exception. This is the validate balance method which will be throwing the insufficient balance exception. So here in the code we are checking if the balance is less than 2000, it will throw new insufficient balance exception. So it will do nothing but call this specific method, and whatever logic we have written inside the constructor, it will call it. So as of now we are just displaying a message on the console. Now let's try to validate this object, validate balance. So here you can see it is giving me an error because it is giving me compilation error, because I need to either add the throws in the declaration of method, or I need to surround it with try or catch, because this specific method to which I am actually doing a call is throwing insufficient balance exception. So either I need to handle it here, or I need to specify that in the signature of this method. So I will add it in the signature of the method. Now let's try to run and see what is happening. So here you can see it has called this specific exception which we have created and printed out this method here. And as we have not handled the exception, so you are able to see these trace logs as well. So if I try to enclose this specific line inside a try catch block and handle it properly, then you will not be able to see these lines of code which are from print stack trace. You will only be able to see insufficient balance in your account. Let's try to make those changes as well. So now I have enclosed it inside a try catch block. Let's try to run the program and see the output. So here you can see it has printed two lines. That other stack trace is gone now. This null is coming from e.getMessage because we have not set any message there. That's why e.getMessage is returning null. Let's try to fix this as well. So to set the message value, I am calling the constructor of main exception class by passing a string as custom exception. So instead of null, now I am expecting to it should print the custom exception. So let's run it, and you can see the custom exception, that message got updated. So this covers all the topic which we have mentioned in our agenda. Now we are only left with interview or exam related questions. But before that, for all the viewers, I have one question. So this is what we will be starting from this video itself. We will try to have one or two questions for the viewers as well, so that we can have interaction over those questions in the comment section. So this is the question for all the viewers. So we have already seen the finally block as it is getting executed all the time. So the question is it possible that finally block is not executed in any of the scenarios? Now let's check few interview or exam related questions here. First is what is the difference between error and exception? So we have seen both these classes are actually subclass of throwable, but there are major differences between these. Errors are unrecoverable. That means you cannot recover from an error. For example, if there is an out of memory error, you cannot recover from it or you cannot handle it. You just have to update the arguments and restart the application itself. On the other side, exceptions are recoverable. We have seen in case of arithmetic exceptions and array index out of bound exception as well, so that we can handle them and the program can be recovered from them and the normal flow of the program can be maintained. Next difference is errors cannot be handled using try catch or finally blocks. On the other hand, exceptions can be handled using try catch and finally block. Errors are only of type unchecked, that means these are only detectable at the runtime, but exceptions are of two types, checked as well as unchecked. The last difference that we have here is errors are actually related to environment in which application is running. So it can be of a JVM, errors can come in the JVM itself, but the exceptions are only related to applications. Exceptions will not come in case of environments. What are checked and unchecked exceptions? So we have already seen and discussed in our previous video. A checked exception is caught at compile time, whereas unchecked exception is caught at runtime. And a checked exception must be handled either by rethrowing it or by handling it using try catch block. Whereas the unchecked exception isn't required to be handled because it will occur at the runtime only. Next question is, can we write only try block without catch and finally blocks? The answer would be no. It will give you a compilation error. You have to write either catch or finally block after the try block, because whatever exception that can occur inside the try block, there is one catch or finally block is required to handle that. Next question is, what is unreachable catch block error? So we have already seen we can use multiple catch blocks, but the order of catch blocks must be from most specific to most general ones. That is, subclasses of exceptions must come first and superclasses on the later. If we try to keep the superclass before the subclass, the compiler will tell us that the catch block which is written below is unreachable. Last but not the least, what is out of memory error? If you are already working on any Java applications at enterprise level, then you should know this error may come very oftenly. Out of memory error is a runtime error in Java, which actually occurs when JVM is unable to allocate the memory to the object due to insufficient space in heap. And Java garbage collector cannot free up the space which is required for the new object. So due to this, the application will be crashed and it will be a fatal error. Application restart will be required. So that's it for this video. So if you have any suggestions, please do comment. Thanks for watching.